This is where it all began, with one of these green and yellow trucks. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, to a 14-year-old girl. She came from a village but had traveled to the city for a better life. I don't know where I was born. I don't know my real birthday. I only know her name was Mary, and I have a vague memory of an abusive dad. My mom and I lived under a tree in the capital city. I begged for food during the day, and at night, the KCC, the bad men in the green trucks, would round up all the street kids and ship them off to camps, or would drive them 8 hours away to dump them, or worse. The story goes that one night in a rainstorm, Mary wrapped me in a plastic bag to hide me from the KCC. But one boy helped my mom and me by taking me to a house full of other kids who also needed safety. That is when everything changed. Forever. It was 2005. A lady came to our kids' house to film a documentary. We called her Mama Shane. There were also 4 college boys who were with her, and they brought us food and help. I didn't know at the time, but it became the most significant moment of my life.
Yes. Nice to meet you guys.
That first immediate contact, that was amazing because these kids immediately latched onto us and we immediately had this connection with them.
Who are you? This is Jessica. Jessica? Oh, yes. Hi, Jessica.
I'll never forget the first time we walked into the compound. All these little kids came running up, and they're kind of timid because we were white visitors, and they don't really have that very often, and they kind of scared, but they're coming up and they're touching us and they're talking. And
he's called Scooby-Doo. He says, Scooby-Doo.
I've seen this place before. Blank faces wanting more or something. Cinematic in a pose. Does everybody know I'm empty inside? When I'm holding on to a life gone wrong, I know that I gotta let go. It's time to leave the memory of my regret. I know with a beautiful soul I can find a peace that's better than happiness.
It was Christmas. I returned to the slums to visit my mom, healthier, but it was the last time I saw her because she suddenly died a few months later. I hold on to this thought of Mary, my real mom, protecting me and giving me away. She knew there was something better and she wanted me to have a future. If she could only see me now. It's unbelievable what God has done. I now had 65 brothers and sisters. We shared everything from food to shoes and slept 4 kids to a bed. By then, Mama Shane had sold everything she owned and moved in with us. And when she couldn't find any of my family, she decided to adopt me. It took almost 3 years for the adoption to go through because it was illegal at the time. I'm blessed to be the 20th child adopted out of Uganda. It wasn't easy getting everyone healthy and in school. But now I look back and know that living with 65 kids taught me how to truly love. I see God's joy everywhere. We really loved each other and fought for each other. And although we still had little, we truly were happy.
Hi, Connor. Hi. Is this on? I'm Mama Shane. So here at Valor, you know I'm Miss Gilbert. I teach in the English department. Some of you have to live with me, all my stories every day.
And I'm Jessica Gilbert. I was a little child, a little girl in the video, and I'm a junior here.
And before we start, we just want to say hello to a couple really special friends of ours. One, my best friend since first grade. Her name's Kelly. She's here, but I can't see her.
She's over there.
Where is she? Do you see her? Oh, there she is. Her and her family have joined us, and Kelly is actually the sister of Brad, who's been playing music for us this morning. Brad also, I've known since he was 3 years old, and he's the one who helped me make this documentary. I finally finished it. It took me 5 years, but that's another story. So he's here playing music with us, so we would just want to say thank you to him coming and joining. He's best friends with Mr. Kettler in a small world. And also we have another friend here. His name's Alan, and we happened to meet him at First Watch, if you ever go to breakfast there. We were working on our chapel talk, and we couldn't come up with anything, and we ended up sitting with this great guy, and he had served our country and had fallen off the back of, I think, a Humvee. I'm probably getting the lingo wrong, Alan. And so he was sharing his story of struggle to joy, and we were sharing ours, and so he's here joining us today. We're so excited. And one more person I want to introduce, it's Mrs. Lumpkin's dad, Mr. LaRock. You don't remember it, but you had me over for dinner, and you convinced me I could do this, so I'm so glad you're here today. You might not remember. Do you remember? You do, all right. All right, so go ahead, honey buns.
You forgot to tell
Oh,
them.
I forgot to say, this is the most important part. So yeah, I'm gonna get a little frazzled because I can't remember anything. In August, Mr. Copeland, you know every chapel person gets up here and they're like, I didn't want to speak at chapel. Well, we actually said yes right away, because in August, you're not thinking in October, you know? You're like, oh, sure, that's no problem. Do you know how hard it is for two people 30 years apart from two completely different continents, opposite side of the planet, to agree on the same chapel talk?
It's hard.
Did we decide?
I think we did.
Oh, all right. Go
Do you
ahead.
want to tell them what it is?
Oh, yes, there's a title. This is the part we agreed on for sure. This is the part we like the most. Okay, it's the title. You always have to have a creative title. Okay, some life lessons we learn living next door to a witch doctor.
Ooh. Okay. All right, so this is Joannie. She was my best friend. She's beautiful, kind, and loving. She comes from a really horrible slum that my mom and I would always go to visit and work in. I always wanted her to be my sister because we always spent time together. And I really wanted mom to adopt her really, really bad. But she said no because she still had a family. I felt guilty for having a new mom because Joannie's mom was dying of AIDS. When we moved to Indonesia in 4th grade, a bad thing happened to her. And some bad things happened to her, but I still can't process most of them. She had her first child at 13 years old and was being raped when she went by her uncle when she went back to the slums. Every story that I heard and every horrible thing that happened to her, guilt kept growing within me, and I kept getting angry at God on why is this happening to her? Why is this happening to my best friend, who I still want as my sister? She dropped out of school and never made it past 6th grade. My guilt still kept growing within me. But this is a usual girl story in Uganda. And I'm a 17-year-old in America, and I'm a junior in high school. So it's unheard of in Uganda. But watching our two lives go completely different directions made me really, really mad at God. Why did God give me a second chance and not her? Why not her? I kept getting angry, and I would cry a lot too. Whenever I'm facing a trial or going through something really difficult, I remind myself to keep on pushing for both of us, to know that, okay, I can do this for Joannie, because wherever she is right now, she's also suffering really bad. All I know for sure is that God has a totally different plan for me and her, and I still have to put my trust in him.
So that day that you saw in the video, I show up in the compound, and all the kids have so much joy, right? You see it. They're all smiling, and everyone's happy, except the truth is most of them had fevers, and they hadn't eaten in several days, and they still were smiling. And I didn't know what to do at that point because I'm there trying to win a film festival. I had set out, my dream plan was I'm going to go head out somewhere in the world, find my great story, and win Sundance. That was the game plan. So I raised the money. Thank you to my buddy Brad. He helped me raise some money. And I got all the equipment, and I knew the story was coming from Africa. I knew it back then. There were no documentaries out yet. There was no Blood Diamond. No movies had won the Oscar yet. So I was feeling like this is the place to go. And when you get there, you meet all the other documentarians, and it's a race. Who's going to find the coolest story while you're there? So that day, I show up, and I don't know what to do. My heart started to change, like something was beating a little differently. Like maybe I wasn't there to just do what I wanted to do anymore. And the phone rings. I had this old Nokia phone, and you guys might be too young. There was this, does anyone know what a Nokia is? Yeah, okay, see, there's the old people in the back raising their hand. This ancient thing, and it's got a SIM card in it, and I put the Africa SIM card in that rings, and it's a pastor friend of mine. He's my mentor, and he's calling from San Diego, and he wants to know, how's it going? How's the documentary? And I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know. Everyone needs to go to a doctor. We're on a $5 a day budget. I don't know who's going to pay for this. I'm freaking out. And he said, Shane, I want you to remember James 1:27. And I was like, well, what? And he goes, James 1:27, do you know it? And I remember yelling into the phone, no, you're the pastor. That's your job. Just say it to me. So he tells me this Bible verse. The religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Do you see that? Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless. I had never heard that before, and if I had blocked it out all those years. Here I am, and I would think I was like 30, 32 years old, first time I had heard it. And my buddy Brad is playing music for us today. He said, well, what are you doing with your life anyway? Why don't you stay here and help these people? And that's where my journey started.
I want you to meet my next friend, Rachel.
Oh, yes.
We grew up in the kids' house together. She was older than me. She always made sure I was okay and smiling. She had a very kind heart. But Rachel had AIDS and would get sick living at school, so she moved in with Mom and Dad in our house. She slept on the top bunk. Mom and me slept on the bottom. Every night we had this ritual of watching High School Musical. We learned every song and everything that everyone said. And guess what, guys? That's how I learned English, guys, through High School Musical.
True.
But one day, she fell off the back of a boda, which is a motorcycle, and got hit by a taxi. I never got to see her again. Maybe God was ending her suffering. Maybe life just seems unfair. But you may be seeing the pattern in my stories and my friends. Bad things happened, and I still had to trust in God. Why was Rachel's life so much harder than mine? Why did I get a second chance and she didn't? Last year in Bible class, we had to do a Bible project, and a Bible verse that really spoke to me was James 1:2-3-4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance. I've learned not to blame God, but to just trust in him.
So here I am. I've moved in with 65 children. I never liked kids. I often tell my students, I teach high school for a reason, people. Sit down. So that wasn't a joke. So here I am. I'm living with 65 kids. We need to have a house. We need to pay some bills. I've never lived in you guys, I grew up in Greenwood Village. I don't know if you know where that is. And I showed horses in Cherry Hills. Like, I am completely out of my element in life, okay? And I had to learn how to live by a candle and no electricity. And oh my goodness, you try and live in Africa with no air conditioning, okay? I had a lot of life lessons to learn quickly. The main one, though, was I had to raise money. I had to buy us someplace to live and get everyone in school and take everyone to the doctor every day. And so as I was learning that journey, did I have a point? Oh. You guys, that's the whole title of the piece. I almost forgot it. I raised some money. I had all the kids do artwork, right? And we sell the artwork off, and we raised $47,000 one day selling all their artwork. It was just paint splattered on canvas. It's so crazy what people will support you for. So I find a house, and guess what? The house that we want to get happens to be exactly $47,000, the amount I raised. So I was like, sign, great, God's with us. We're buying this thing. Except this guy, Isaac, the most well-known witch doctor in the entire area, owns it, and we're going to buy it from him. Now, we toured it, and there were shrines and skulls and blood sacrifices and all things I had never seen, never wanted to see. And I thought, no big deal. We're just going to burn this stuff down. We're Christians. We'll just pray over it. Wrong. Worst idea I ever had in my life. I spent the next 7 years learning what E. coli does to you, typhoid, killer bees. I got killer bee stories. Every single worker who ever came to work at the place to help me get it ready for kids in the hospital, having to pay all their hospital bills. And I was out of my element. And you know how Dorothy says in Wizard of Oz, you're not in Kansas anymore. You are not in Cherry Hills anymore. So I had a new life lesson, a new path I was on. And some amazing things happened in that place. I saw more joy, more miracles, and I learned what it really meant to walk in signs and wonders. I don't know if you've read that in the Bible, but I didn't know what that meant until I actually had to do it. And so for the next 7 years, that's what I did. It was the greatest years of my whole life.
I was finally adopted, and I got to go to America on an airplane. The journey did not go as well. I was kind of traumatized because this mom over here forgot that she had a child. Guys, a child. And on the flight, I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, but no one explained to me how to use an accordion door on an airplane bathroom. I was stuck in there for a long, long time, screaming, crying, hitting the door. She still didn't hear me. When I finally moved to America a few years ago and attended Valor, I realized the culture difference in different parts of the world. Why are people so obsessed with buying a new car and then showing it off? Why do people think that buying a brand new thing or a logo will make them really happy to show off to their friends? As you saw in the video, God started me and my friends from nothing. No food, no water, and definitely no hope of going to school or surviving malaria. We learned to just appreciate all the great days that we got to spend together. Like when we ate chicken. That was a really great day.
So as you guys can see, Jessica and I have had different journeys. We were in the same place, and we didn't even have the same walk at all. We had totally different struggles. And let's pull it all together for him. Yes. So lessons we learned living next door to, by the way, he then, after sold us the house, moved in next door. We didn't get rid of Isaac. He was right there every day. Casting curses. We were praying him back. Okay. So the first thing, Joanne, she taught Jessica that God loves you and he has a plan for you, right? And that your plan might not look the same as his, and that your best friend's plan surely isn't going to look the same as yours. And two, this was my lesson, the religion that is pure and right is to look after the orphans and widows. I learned to serve people who had less than me. It was the greatest thing I ever did. So that was a good lesson. And number 3, we got from Rachel. And bad things are going to happen, guys. But when bad things happen, you don't blame God. You lean into them. You lean in and you wait because something's coming for you. And then Jessica's, appreciate the days you eat chicken. You all know what a metaphor is, right? I could get a slide. We could do a little lit device lesson right now.
How fun.
And then 5, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. That's the most important.
Yes. Number 5 is definitely the most important lesson for me up there. There's a difference between being happy and having pure joy. They're not the same thing. Pure joy comes from suffering and just really hard things. We can't live our best life without trusting in God. So I want you guys to trust in God. Thank you.
Amen.